Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Well, it's that time of year again, so let's make an ice-dyed sweater to try to keep warm this winter. I've prepped the sweater like normal, and this time I didn't turn it inside out. I just left it right side out. I bought this sweater last season and I never got around to dyeing it. I actually bought a couple of them, and it's an Old Navy brand sweater that's 100% cotton. Because it's a sweater too, it has a texture to it. It's pretty thick, but it has kind of a waffly woven texture to it. So because of that, I figured some designs probably wouldn't translate really well with the texture of the sweater. So I decided to go ahead and do just a random sinew line on the sweater. This is kind of one of my favorite designs to put on items that are like dresses, or in this case a sweater, something that you don't want to look too busy, but you still want it to have a little bit of a design. I think the random sinew lines give a little bit of definition and design to the sweater or the shirt or whatever I'm putting it on without making it overly busy. It's kind of, in a way, got a little bit of a geode vibe without the busyness and the variation of a geode. So you can do this however you want to. It's what makes it random. You can grab both layers of fabric or just a single layer of fabric, whatever you want to do. In this case, I'm grabbing both layers of fabric at a time and just kind of bunching up the fabric and tying a sinew line. Here again, you can make as many lines on your shirt or your sweater or your item as you want to, or as few as you'd like to. And in this case, I am folding like the sleeves into part of the shirt. I'm really trying to keep it as random as possible. I think the more you don't think about it, the better it looks. I'm using sinew too because the sinew with the wax coating is going to help keep the dye from going underneath these areas where I'm placing my sinew lines. I'm placing my lines of sinew, tightening them down really well until the sinew locks on itself, and that will create a kind of waterproof or dye-proof barrier that's not going to allow those things underneath that line, and I'm still going to have these beige or taupey lines in my sweater. I think that'll look cool. Once I have it tied, I'm going to go ahead and apply the dye while the sweater is still damp. And for this sweater, I've chosen 3 different shades of blue. I thought that the blues would go really nicely paired with the taupey beige color of the sweater. So I'm going to use Wedgwood Blue from Dharma Trading Company, Smoky Blue from Dye Spin, and Nightfall from Dye Spin. I'm also going to apply the dye over the top of the ice. That's going to give it a little bit softer feel on the sweater. So I'm taking a plastic tub or tote. Then I'm going to turn a plastic container upside down to keep this plastic clothes basket off the bottom of the container. I don't want to dye this sweater in the muck. Basically, all muck is the melting ice that's mixed with the dye. So my clothes basket is one which I purchased from the Dollar Tree dollar store, and it has holes on the sides and on the bottom. So that's going to allow the muck to drain away from the sweater. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some ice over the top of the sweater. And because the sweater is a pretty thick fabric, I'm going to add quite a bit of ice. Now I'm going to randomly apply my 3 dye colors over the top of the ice. I'm pretty much going to cover most of my ice with dye as well. I mean, the sweater is pretty thick and I want to make sure I have plenty of dye. Now I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top of the dye, and then I'm just going to leave this container alone and let the ice melt. After the ice melted, The sweater looked like it had decent color saturation. I had a few lighter areas, and I could have gone ahead, added a little bit more ice and dye to those areas if I wanted to, but I really wanted a softer feel to this sweater, so I decided to just leave it alone and see how it turned out. To rinse the sweater, I took it to my utility sink and I started rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then I untied the sweater and warmed the water up to hot and continued rinsing in hot water to try to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of rinsing for a long time, I ran some really hot water in my utility sink, added a little bit of Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, and just allowed the sweater to soak. When the water cooled off, I changed it out and I continued that hot water soak until my water was remaining almost clear. Blues are kind of hard to get totally rinsed, and because the sweater is pretty thick, that made it a little bit difficult as well. But finally, after quite a few hot water soaks, the water was remaining almost clear, and I put the sweater, along with some of Dharma's professional textile detergent, into my washing machine, and I washed the sweater using a hot water cycle. Then, because it is 100% cotton, the sweater was kind of stretched out. So I just went ahead and threw it in my dryer and went ahead and shrunk it back down a little bit. So at this point, the sweater has been washed and dried, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks pretty cool. I think it was a good call to go with the random design on this sweater because I think the design pairs really well with the texture in the sweater. And I really like the blues on the sweater as well. They blend really nicely with that undertone of the beige. I ended up with some pretty color splits on this one too. So overall, I really like it. I think it turned out really pretty. Like I said, I have a couple more of these to do. I just kind of have been sitting on them because I wasn't entirely sure what design to use for these sweaters. Sometimes it can be a little intimidating to try like a new item, figure out a design that will work with the texture of the fabric. But I think this design works really well. If you have any suggestions for maybe something I could do a little bit different for the other couple sweaters I have, I am always open to suggestions. I don't think any design where you have to have very specific or defined pleats will work very well because these sweaters are 100% cotton. They do stretch out. But the nice part about them being 100% cotton is you can just throw them in the dryer and they'll kind of shrink back down to shape. And maybe if you need to stretch them out a little bit, you can do that while they're still damp. So I think the sweater and the fabric in the sweater is great. And overall, I really like this one. But what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And like I said, if you've got any suggestions, please drop those down below too. And if you've enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.